Hi, and welcome to Time Out with Remax. My name's Adrian Goslet, and I'm the CEO of Remax of Southern Africa. Today, I get to interview two stalwarts in the property industry in South Africa, Peter Gilmour, the founder of Remax SA, and Anthony van Reit, the CEO of the Coaching Factory. Together, they have over 90 years experience in real estate. They've seen the good, the bad, and the ugly, and today we get to learn from their experiences. I hope you enjoyed this session.
Well, guys, thank you so much for joining us. We've got two gentlemen here with me today that have been in the industry, and we worked it out earlier. Between the three of us, we have over 100 years in real estate. I can't say I contribute a whole lot to that because the experience sits on the other side of the camera right now, but I'm thrilled to be able to have them. And the reason we asked these two gents to be on is because they have seen the good, the bad, and the ugly that all the different markets have offered up over the last 40 plus years. Our two guests today are Anthony van Reit and Peter Gilmour. Peter is the founder of Remax in Southern Africa that started Remax here just over 25 years ago. Peter, welcome.
Hi, Adrian, and great to be with you. And yeah, what a time we're going through. But just to give you a brief background, I started in real estate in 1974 in Cape Town, joined my dad in a real estate company. And we were partners for 25 years and did resales, sale of new homes, auctioneering, valuing, the entire spectrum in the real estate industry. And that was my passion, was selling real estate and working with agents, working with buyers and sellers, and really trying to meet the needs of customers. We moved from there. I was part of the nationwide referral group in the mid-80s. And with a couple of partners, we started HomeNet in the early 90s and grew HomeNet to a large company in 1994 when my wife and I had the opportunity to purchase the franchise rights for Remax over 10 countries in Southern Africa. And yeah, that's been our life for the last 25 years, and really enjoyed it. Exciting. My life is real estate, and you know, we just continuing our passion not only for the industry but for the brand as well.
Cool, thanks, Peter. I appreciate that, and I'm sure we'll. I know you spent a number of years in the States in between, and we'll talk about that a little bit later because I think what we have to talk about today that is going to be really relevant those 2007 years. So thanks for being with us. And then we have Anthony van Reit with us. So for those that don't know Anthony van Reit, where the hell have you been if you're in real estate? Because Anthony's also been in real estate for just on 40 years. In fact, just over 40 years, and more recently runs one of the leading real estate training organizations in Southern Africa called the Coaching Factory. So this is the advertorial part of today's session. If you need any assistance, you need to get onto the Coaching Factory. But Anthony, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much, Adrian. And hi, Peter. You know, it started, I went to study at Wits, and when I finished, my dad said to me, go and get a job at a bank or one of the big insurance companies. So the only one that could give me a job at that stage was Sanlam in Cape Town, and I drove down with the car my dad bought me, Peugeot 404, went there on the first day on the accounting side, and they said, there's a mistake. We haven't got a job for you. But we've got an opening in our commercial industrial division. And I said, is the pay the same? And they said, yes. So I started off commercial industrial with Sanlam. And then a number of years later, I met up with a friend that drove a big fancy car. And I said, where'd you get the car? He said, no, I'm an estate agent. And my salary was like 4,000 Rand, which was a decent salary at the time. And he said he was making about 10,000, 12,000 Rand. So I resigned and went into the residential and started with Camden's those days. That also became, you know, they were part of Nationwide and also became a home net. So Peter and myself have got similar areas where we come from. And then in 2007, I decided to start the coaching factory full-time. I'd been the chairman of the institute for 10 years for Joburg Central. And I was going to make a fortune because in 2004, there were 91,000 estate agents. So I went and became a facilitator, an assessor, and got all the qualifications. And then 2008 came and there was very few agents to train.
Yeah.
So that's my story.
I remember those days well. I wasn't around in the early ones, but I was definitely there in 2008. And let's just use the word interesting. It was definitely interesting through those years. So guys, you might hear more from Peter and Anthony than you actually hear from me. I might end up not asking any questions because they've been around for so long. They've worked with each other for so many years, and they've seen more than I've seen in real estate, which is why it's great to have them. But I do have to ask a few questions, and I want to throw them in. And my first one is to Peter. And Peter, I wanted to know from a learnings that you can take from 99, and it was roughly, if I recall, around 99 when interest rates went through the roof. And then later on in 2007 in the US and 2008 here in South Africa, what for you were some of the learnings you took out of that? And maybe for those who don't know, just give them a brief of what those interest rates sounded like in 99.
Well, they were two very different times because 98, 99, we had interest rates that went up to 28%. Real estate pretty much stopped at that time. The affordability was just impossible. And that lasted for some while. And that was pretty much, a big bump that had come at the end of the decade. Today, we have a situation where we've stopped working altogether. Real estate in that time still continued, and one could still get mortgages, but they were very difficult to get. The time we have now is very different. And in 2007, 2008, that was a financial crisis. And I'll tell you some more about that because we were working at the Remax head office in the United States at that time. And we saw what was happening right across the entire country. And that was a very, very interesting time and a very much of a growing time, not only for myself, but a lot of our colleagues and the management team at Remax.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, they were certainly. And Anthony, from yourself, what sort of learnings did you take out of those periods for yourself?
Well, from 2004, sorry, let me start again. From 1994, when the interest rates were 16%, to 98 and 99, when it shot up to 25.5 and some banks 28%, as Peter said. Wow. It was one of the things that happened was a lot of agents fell out of the market. And also the banks were starting to fix the rates. They would give somebody a fixed rate at 4% below, but they had to do it for 3 years. And then the interest rates actually dropped quite fast, and those guys that were locked in were actually paying more than they would have if they didn't lock themselves in.
Yeah, I wasn't in the game then, but I remember my parents clearly going through that, and it definitely wasn't fun times from a consumer point of view, that's for sure, especially if you did lock yourself in there. So yes. Let's talk about that for a sec. Peter, I mean, we now sit with interest rates in Southern Africa at an all-time low. I mean, if you were giving advice to someone that was in the market now or buying, or someone that already has a home loan in place, I mean, would you be advising them to lock their interest rates or to ride the wave?
Well, you'd have to look at the banks because the interest rates here are historically low, as they are in the United States and the whole of North America, where interest rates are down almost at zero. So people are refinancing, getting lower rates, and if there's obviously possibilities of locking in, that's a good thing. Banks are very wary to do that, obviously, right now.
Yeah.
But it's an exciting time because this is new territory for us. We've never had in the future, the past for a number of years, we've never had interest rates as low as we have them now. And especially that, historically, if you had a mortgage where you were maybe 0.5% or 1% below prime, it's even looking a lot better. And it's a time where, my dear old dad, who was in the real estate industry for 50 years, he always used to bring things down to very, very simple terms. He said, real estate is all about three things. You have buyers, you have sellers, and you have money. And very rarely do you have all three at the same time. Because you either have sellers and money, or buyers with money, or buyers and sellers with no money. But real estate agents make the best of their careers when things are changing. And right now things are changing because we're having a drop in the interest rates. We're waiting to see what will happen. We will probably have more sellers than buyers initially coming out of this. And it's going to be an exciting time for professional agents, because it's going to be pushed very much by affordability. However, we might find that the bank's criteria tightens up a little bit. So there's always a balance that has to be created.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I guess we do find ourselves in interesting times right now, because I remember you telling me about those three criteria, buyers, sellers, and finance. And I guess where we find ourselves right now is without any of those. We're locked in a period where they might exist, but we're unable to operate with them. So I mean, it's completely unprecedented times. Anthony, before I come to you, I just want to go to Peter again. Let's just rewind a little bit. 2007 in the United States, when we went through, and it was a financial crash. It wasn't the same as where we find ourselves now, but maybe just, if you don't mind, just drawing a parallel and talking about some of the mindset that people went through. When I say people, I mean, I guess mainly estate agents, but also consumers went through in the US in 2007.
Well, I think the thing that is consistent is that there was uncertainty. People really didn't know what was happening. We had the subprime crisis, mortgages that had been given out on ridiculous terms. And prices were dropping, and people had mortgages greater than the value of their homes. They were unable to afford to pay the mortgages. People lost their jobs. So there are many similarities, but it was a financial crisis. And one thing that our boss, Mr. Lineker, got us all together, and he'd been through a number of crises in his experience. And he was very, very calm. And the things that he said to us was, you need to be very logical, you need to be very calm, because this will pass. And it may take a year, it may take more than a year, but it will pass and things will get better again. But what we're going to do as an organization is we're going to look at what customers need. What customers, what banks need, because we have professional agents, and we are going to see the gaps and where we can take advantage of these gaps. And that was the advent when people were losing their homes and banks were taking back hundreds and thousands of properties that they had to repossess. And the whole distressed property market started, and he insisted that all of our agents take courses in how to deal with distressed property owners and with banks, because the banks were our customers as well. And we filled a need, and we were one of the first to do that. And the same is going to happen here when things open up. We're going to have to fill the needs of our customers, and we're going to have to be talking to our customers to find out what those needs are, because there is always a need somewhere. And that's where the professional estate agent comes in. There's been a lot of discussion about, new formulas for real estate and new companies with different programs. But the one thing that is consistent is that the real estate agent will always be the center of the real estate transaction. And they are the facilitators, and a professional real estate agent is needed by the consumers more now than ever before.
No, you're 100% right. It's actually just reminded me last night, today's the 8th of May. Last night, regulation came out for allowing, under this lockdown period, allowing movement of a tenant and or homeowner or home seller, I should say, up until the 7th of June with certain restrictions. And what's interesting is part of those restrictions are that you need an incoming and outgoing inspection to be done. That's required by the Rental Housing Act. And the person to do that is an agent, and that hasn't been taken into account. So yeah, you're absolutely right. That's just a tiny sliver of where an agent is required. Anthony, I mean, you at the moment work a lot clearly with agencies and agents and so on. Peter spoke of professional agents needing to ready themselves to what's coming, because things will come back. What is your advice at the moment for the agents that you're working with? What are you telling them that they should be thinking about at the moment before we get to the consumer? So let's focus on the agent for a sec. What is your message to them at the moment?
Well, over the years, I always say to agents, if we look back as an agent, I always use my own story. We built our first house in 1978, and that cost us 29,000 rand. And in 1994, when we spoke about...
Anthony, can you just repeat that? I think I said you said 219,000 rand. Is that right? Yeah.
29,000 rand.
I think I've got a story to beat that, Anthony. When I started in real estate in the mid-70s, we had a problem, obviously, in 1976. And we were building homes in Cape Town at that time in the southern suburbs. And we were selling them for 17,000 rand. And these were 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom homes with a garage. 17,000 rand. We were getting 100% loans from the banks on that. And in many cases, they included the costs as well. So it was very, very favorable, but we used to sit show houses from 10 a.m. in the morning until 5 o'clock on Saturday and Sunday. And if we had 3 people the whole weekend, we were delighted. It was an absolute success.
Yeah, I remember those days. That's what I say to agents. This is a long-term career. If you look at how prices, and if you look at the graph, there's slight blimps. In 2008, there was a slight blimp where we came from 2004, where the economy was going wild. We had 91,000 registered estate agents in 2004, 91,000. And in 2008, it dropped down to 34,000. So about 2/3 of the agents left. But the market dropped 40%. So if we work it out, there were more sales per agent in 2008 than 2004, because there were so many more mouths eating off that pie. And what I can say to agents, the ones that stayed, the ones that are still going strong, are the ones that's got a strong database, a CRM, staying in touch with people, making sure that they build relationships. Because there is nothing, your business is worth nothing if you have to get up and go and look and cold call every day. But if you stay in touch and people contact you, you've got a business. And that's where yeah.
100% right. I mean, you and Peter both just used that word, relationships. And I guess that's why the agent will be integral, or should be. The professional agent will be integral to the transaction going forward, because it's not about the transaction, it's about dealing with people. And I figure that's probably why, and I remember those days in 2008, why 90,000 became, 34,000, because, dare I say it, probably 50,000 didn't add any value to the transaction or to that relationship. It was purely a transactional relationship. So I think that's really good value for those that are listening, and good advice for those that are listening. There will always be technology that comes in. I mean, there's technology now. We've been pushed off the fence to use things like open virtual houses and virtual open homes and virtual tours on your camera and all sorts of different tech. But at the end of the day, this is where it's at. It's a face-to-face game, a belly-to-belly game. Peter, from a consumer's perspective, so we advocate to our agents, guys, relationships, skill yourself up. Actually, I haven't actually sent it out yet, but I used an analogy from Brian Buffini. He talks about NASCAR, and when there's a crash, which is what we find ourselves in now, a crash, there's this safety car that comes out the front, and then everybody has to hook in behind the safety car while the crash is cleared up. But the engine keeps rolling. And what he was referring to is that you need to keep skilling yourself up, even though you can't floor it, make sure that you keep skilling yourself up, etc. So when the green flag goes up and the safety car is away, you're away as well. So maybe if I can, I mean, maybe speak from a real estate agent point of view. Firstly, what would be your advice to agents right now as they find themselves in this sort of weird lockdown period? And then also from the consumer's point of view, what would your advice be to them in terms of what opportunities might come out of this?
Well, from an agent point of view, they say that failing to plan is planning to fail, and you've got to be planning for when real estate opens again, because it will open. And we're going through just a unique period right now. But this is an ideal time to get yourself ready from a professional point of view, from an emotional point of view, from a physical point of view. Get yourself ready for the moment that real estate opens. And in order to do that, you have to work extremely hard. This is not a time to sit at home and socialize. This is a time where you have to prepare yourself. And you look at companies who are successful and agents who are successful, and what are they doing? They're returning to the basics, number one. They are looking at building CRMs, building relationships with people, contacting people. This is a time where collaboration comes in, and we're seeing more collaboration now than ever before because it's so necessary. And we're having our social circles cut off, but it is forcing us to collaborate in different ways. So this is a time where you've got to be patient, but you've got to be very, very focused on what you do. And, they say there's some people that watch what happens, there's some people that wonder what happens, and there's some people that make things happen. And right now, if you're a professional agent and you have a dream and a passion for this industry, this is a time where you have to make things happen, because it's going to help you when you come out of the real estate standstill we're in and your engine is still running and you are having to accelerate, and it's going perhaps not as quickly as you may think, but at least you're not having a standing start. You are having a rolling start, and you're able to get ahead of the crowd because of the preparation and planning that you're putting in place right now.
Excellent, thanks. And Anthony, from a consumer's point of view, so I mean, yes, we know you're a real estate trainer, we know you're in real estate, but I'm sure you're a savvy investor as well. I mean, you've been around the block a while and seen these different markets. And there's a guy in the United States who runs a little company called Berkshire Hathaway. I think his surname is Buffett, I think. And he's the type of guy that, from what I've seen, he thrives on periods like this, where he waits for an opportunity, where he sits on money, and then he picks and chooses how to invest. So from a real estate point of view, what would your advice be to consumers that find themselves in this space right now from an opportunity perspective?
Yes, it's right, because we have to coach and train agents what to say to the consumers. and have them look. The first thing we always say is don't think with your wallet. Give advice. You know, when you think with your wallet, you are always changing your loyalty between buyer and seller, and you're not doing what's best for all parties. And as Peter said, you know, we are the facilitators, the negotiators. There'll always be a need for a negotiator or facilitator. But the public out there, you know, one of our famous lines that we train on our Power Focus course, that's a one-on-one course that we give, is we have a line that if I ask, or somebody asked you, how is the property market? Some agents rattle on and say it's very good or it's tough, and we teach them to say, well, are you asking as a buyer or a seller? Because you'll never know why they're asking if you don't ask those questions. And, you know, as you said just now with Warren Buffett, what is advice to the consumer? And the other line, you know, it's like a buyer asking, is it a good time to buy? And then we always say, well, the best time to buy is always 10 years ago. And in 10 years' time, you're going to say, I should have bought 10 years ago. So, yes, but you must also be careful and you must negotiate and speak to an agent that knows the market, that can give advice. Because it's not just a matter of buying. There's also where you're going to buy. You also, what is the reason you're going to buy? And how long do you think you're going to live in that property? Because most people say, when they move into a house, that's it. They must carry me out here in a box. I'm staying here forever. And then 4 or 5 years later, they sell again. So there's, you know, and Warren Buffett's saying is, buy low and sell high. So that tells us where we are now.
Great. Yeah, I mean, I believe, look, it's probably a little insensitive comment, but it is a little funny. I believe the line now for an estate agent showing a home is, can you see yourself quarantined in this place for the next 2 weeks?
You know, they always say that the market you have is all you have to work with. So, you know, the market is the market, and there will be opportunities in every market. It doesn't matter where they are. And right now, the market gives us tremendous opportunities as we come out of the lockdown, and it's just a matter of looking for them. And, you know, estate agents have got to realize that they can't let the environment dictate their success. They have to control their own destiny and have their planning and be able to execute on that. And similarly for consumers, there will be opportunities for all consumers, buyers and sellers. And depending on their circumstances, they need to evaluate and plan ahead and say, where do I want to be in 5 years, 10 years time? And as Anthony was saying, you know, the market is going to get stronger and we will have crashes in the future as well. So just plan for these, be conservative. And, you know, the important thing is to be business savvy. Know that, you know, debt is not your friend. And, you know, from an investment point of view, it can assist you, but, you know, you have to be very, very careful as to how you control it.
Great, thanks, Peter. Good advice.
If I can just add on to what you said as well now, you know, we're not a nation of savers. We're a nation of spenders. And I think that's why it's hurting so many people. And not just, that's everybody. If you look at how Japan now, they save and how little we save. And people have never really gone out of their way to pay extra on their bonds and open a savings account for these type of things. And hopefully this will teach us a little thing or two, how to go forward and plan things.
Absolutely. So I'm going to ask those two questions. One question to each of you is, we now obviously find ourselves in a state of flux where we can't operate, but yet we've been forced to learn new things while we're sitting in lockdown and to contemplate on what the world might look like from a real estate context anyway, post-lockdown and going into the future. So my question is to both. Maybe I'll start with Peter. From a real estate perspective, what do you think will be different for an agent in the post-lockdown world? from the way that they engage and operate?
Well, I think that depends on where they've come from and what the experience is. We have many agents who have recently joined the industry, and some who have been there for a long time and perhaps have been through some of the ups and downs 10 years ago. So as you know, things will change, they will be different. We're going to have to adapt some of the ways we work. But from an agent point of view, the basics are still there. As Anthony was saying, you have to build up a very active client base who can recommend you. You have to be recommendable, number one. And, that is the basis of all business. How you conduct your business certainly may change because of technology and the virtual aspect of some of the changes that we are seeing. And there are many agents that will embrace that. And there are many agents that perhaps won't embrace that and will continue the same way. So you're probably going to see there'll be two different paths going forward. The people who are technology enabled and those who aren't. And it's not to say that those who aren't will not be successful, but the way that consumers perceive the agent is also going to change. And the agent that is able to give the value in the eyes of the consumer is the one that's going to succeed. And whatever that may be. And it can vary area to area, suburb to suburb, different suburbs, different cities. But the value proposition that the agent gives is going to be critical going forward, because that is what has to meet the expectations of the customer. And wherever that may be, in whatever price range that may be, whether it's in the upper price range or the lower price ranges, the agent is going to have to meet that value proposition and to meet the expectations of the consumer in that particular market.
Great. I remember you saying to me, and you're right, I think people have to learn and adapt to changing environments, etc. And the reason that's crucial, I remember one of the lines you used to say, you get two types of agents. You get an agent that's got 20 years experience, and you've got an agent that's been in the industry for 20 years with 1 year's experience repeated 20 times. And there's a big difference between the two. Those that learn and adapt and evolve, but still bring their value and relationship, are the ones that will thrive. I mean, Anthony, I can only imagine you'd agree with that.
Absolutely. One of the things that we have to now look at is our social skills, our negotiating skills, our emotional intelligence, because we find our job is all about negotiations and about building relationships. You negotiate on the phone to get an appointment when you make cold calls. You negotiate to get a sole mandate. You negotiate to get an offer, to present an offer. Then you negotiate your commission these days, which is under pressure. So a lot of things, and I think when you give the right advice and you do it in a way that you don't think with your wallet, we have to up our professionalism where the public actually wants to use our service. You never hear one doctor talking bad about another doctor. So we have to adopt that where we look at our profession. And if you differ from somebody else or they differ from you, you say, well, everyone has got their opinion. That's how doctors normally answer. But just to add what Peter said as well, those relationships, we mustn't build relationships on instant gratification. When can I sell your house? That's, you hear agents, come on, man, give me your house to sell. We have to stay in touch. We rather have to change the way that we ask things and rather say, have you thought of investing in another property? Because there are so many people sitting on money or houses that are paid up. Rather approach them from the point of view, why don't you put your money into extra properties? It's still the best retirement investment you can get.
Excellent advice.
I think that just talking with somebody the other day, they say this is a time for relentless giving. You've got to be giving to your database, giving to your customers and clients you've dealt with in the past, because it's going to come back to you. And now is the time to be helping them, to be communicating with them when they need to be communicated with, and really to build that personal relationship that you need to be able to get the referral business, because of the trust that is created between you and your clients. And that is absolutely critical. And for real estate agents, we all have a dream of doing better, a dream of doing things better, and we have a passion for the industry. I mean, we really, really have a passion for what we do, and we've got to really show that at this stage. This is the time for us to shine, and this is where we can really make a difference, not only in our communities, but in our real estate industry, locally and nationally, because we have an important part in that community.
Well, guys, that's been some great advice. I think people that have been tuning into this will be able to take value from this, and hopefully they implement some of the things. But I want to finish with the final question. I'm going to shoot to Anthony first and then across to Peter. And Anthony, specifically for real estate agents that are listening to this right now, what is your piece of advice that out of the last 45 minutes, or maybe additional advice, what is the one thing that you say they should be focusing on as we speak right now?
Well, I'm going to speak from my point of view, because I'm a coach and a trainer with a coaching factory. So my advice to them is, get yourself a coach or a mentor. Get somebody that you can speak to, that you can be accountable to, that will give you direction, that can also look at what you're doing, what you're saying, and how you're doing it, and giving you honest feedback. Because there's a lot of people out there that are nice to you, but they don't help you with what you're doing. So with what we do is we make sure that people have got some sort of program, that they've got a daily activity, that they're accountable to themselves. They first of all have to be accountable to me until they make it a habit. And once they realize, if they speak to 10 people a day, add it to their CRM, diarize what they spoke about, pick up one little thing. Maybe somebody says their daughter's getting married. Now, when you phone them again in 2 or 3 months' time and you say, how did the wedding go? Instantly, it shows that you're interested in people. We have to focus that we must improve ourselves. If you take somebody like Tiger Woods and those people, they haven't got just one coach. They got 2, 3, 4, 5 coaches. The one looks after them physically, technique, health, all those things that they do. And I see a lot of agents think it is an expense. They don't look at it as an investment. They don't look at it, and a lot of coaches, even to myself as well, I don't charge people up front if it's one-on-one. I earn off what they earn. So they pay me when they get it. And my job is to make sure I get paid. So I want to get them to make money. Absolutely. And the more I can get them to make, the better I will get as well.
That's a great philosophy, and it's one that we teach our people as well. First, give out in slices, and you get it back in loaves. And I mean, you nailed all the points there. Communication, mentorship, coaching, and accountability. I don't know, Peter. That sounds a lot like what real estate has been for the last 47 years. But I want to hear from you what your bit of advice would be to agents right now.
Well, you've got to start by planning. As I said, planning is very important. Plan for the opening of real estate, which is going to happen, and it may be sooner than later, but your planning is very important. Then the next P is prepare. Prepare yourself for the opening. Don't get there from a standing start. Keep your preparation going. And then the third thing is be persistent. Persistence right now is the key, because it's so easy to start and to run out of enthusiasm. Your passion for real estate has got to carry you through, and you have to be persistent. And if you are persistent, you will ultimately achieve those outcomes that you want to achieve and that you plan to achieve. But you have to be very disciplined, and you have to be very careful that you don't fall back and you don't backslide, because it is very, very difficult to recover once you lose your momentum. And Mr. Liniger in the United States in 2008, when we were going through some of the worst times and we'd lost lots of agents, and agents had become despondent, he gave us a little bit of really good advice, which for us younger people didn't feel like good advice, but we had to do it anyway because he told us we had to do it. He says, go back and read a book that I believe was something that inspired me and still inspires me, that was published in the Great Depression in the 1930s. And he said, this is Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich. And there's a subsequent book called 3 Feet from Gold. And it talks about how somebody who was looking for a very rich strain of gold in the ground, and he was tunneling and tunneling and tunneling, and he gave up and eventually ended up as a pauper, and he was just totally despondent. And people took over the mine, and ultimately found that he was 3 feet from one of the richest strains of gold that had ever been found in the region. And just that little bit of extra persistence would have paid off for him extremely well. So Think and Grow Rich and 3 Feet from Gold, two very, very good reads. And as I say, he made us read both books, and they certainly did come home.
Awesome. Well, there you have it, folks. You've heard from two stalwarts of the industry that have been there before and have not just survived some of those crises, but have thrived through them and are still around today and adding value to agents across the country. To Anthony, to Peter, I really appreciate you guys being on this Zoom call with me. It's a new way of operating. Maybe we need to do a whole lot more of these, because I think the value that you've just imparted is second to none. So I really do appreciate it. Thank you for being on the Zoom call.